The following is a segment from the book I published called The Skeptical Buddha, the Tao of Science. I am currently slowly working on recording an audiobook version of this, read by myself, which may or may not be ready in time for the holidays. If you enjoy this segment, please consider buying a copy for yourself or a friend this holiday season. Link is listed below. Tibetan Tantra. It's interesting to note the Tibetan Lamas consider Saraha their founder, but have also taken vows of celibacy. Vajrayana is the third of the three major branches of Buddhism, and while there are many schools inside of it, all branches of Vajrayana contain some form of Tantra. To some, Vajrayana Buddhism is just Mahayana Buddhism, but with a quicker method added onto it, while others view it as superior or completely different to Mahayana. Members of both groups often view the Theravada Buddhists' practice as inferior, as the little vehicle, or even translated as defective, and very difficult to gain enlightenment from, as its purpose is to gain only enlightenment for oneself, and not about gaining enlightenment to spread it to all of reality. Theravadins, on the other hand, view the idea of liberating everyone to reach enlightenment as a fool's errand and a dogma that is not at all possible. They can lead a horse to water, but making them drink is another thing entirely. Vajrayana Buddhism is called the diamond or the thunderbolt vehicle, relating to the mythical weapon the Vajra, an indestructible weapon, the double-sided club with a ribbed spherical head, sometimes with a blade on each side. It was wielded by the god Indra, a storm deity, whose Vajra was formed from adamantite and could cut through anything. It is considered to be one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, according to Hindus. Indra was an Indo-Aryan deity that appears to have come to India during the Axial Age, along with a host of other deities, when they immigrated to northern India in what appears to be a mostly peaceful immigration. As the Indo-Aryans branched out from the Iranian area, both east and northwest, it is possible that Indra and Thor and even Yahweh could be versions of the same initial storm deity. The most common Vajra, the five-pronged Vajra, made up of 4 ribs and a central prong, represents on one side the 5 poisons of the material or phenomenal world of samsara, and on the other side, the 5 wisdoms of the nominal world, or nirvana. It is considered the male piece, often paired in meditation with the bell, which is the female aspect associated with the wisdom of emptiness. This reminds them that one must empty themselves to attain enlightenment, and it also represents the void from which all creation sprang, while the clapper inside the bell symbolizes form and empathy. Vajrayana Buddhism is believed to have spent much time during medieval India working alongside Shaivism, or esoteric worship of Shiva, as wealthy people and royalty paid to have temples built that they both had to share, causing them to trade ideas with each other. This pairing formed as early as 100 CE and is why in places such as Bali, where Hinduism is the predominant religion, the Buddha is Shiva's younger brother, and certain holidays such as the Festival of Silence, or Nyepi, are officiated by both Hindu and Buddhist priests. Following this pairing from sometime between 300 to 1300 CE, a sect of long-haired traveling monks, supposedly from the Bengal region, called Mahasiddhas, traveled around and used many of the techniques Saraha is said to have used, living in cremation grounds and engaging in left-handed practices such as the taboos of ritual sex and ingestion of taboo substances, all the while mocking and challenging establishment Buddhism. Much of their formation occurred as an aggressive and defensive position against the medieval practices of using violence to force obedience by those with power who were deified, which establishment Buddhists at the time were complicit in. Rumors of magical powers and abilities to control ghouls and other forms of spirits, as they lived around the dead, helped give them some level of protection in this era of persecution against unorthodox ideas. In fact, many of these practices, for much of Tantric history, were for the procurement of magical powers, including weather control, all the way back to the Vedic period or early Hinduism. The very first Tantric Sutra, written in the 7th century CE, was the first to focus on using Tantra for liberation and enlightenment, as opposed to being used for these powers. Vajrayana practices differ from the Mahayana, in the fact that the Mahayana focus on taking their natural Buddhahood and cultivating and growing it like a fruit, while Vajrayana views everyone as having a fully formed Buddha within them. They just need to learn to dissolve the ego, which is currently drowning it out. After that, they can focus on visualizing and internalizing the Buddha, the eternal Buddha, or Amitabha, or any number of local deities, as they are all aspects of the greater Buddha. As Vajrayana evolved this deity visualization, it began to replace much of the left-handed acts of Tantra, and instead they visualized Tantric sex with a deity as a divine consort of perfect enlightenment, instead of actually practicing taboo acts in real life. This is why the Dalai Lama is celibate, even though he is technically a practitioner of Tantric Buddhism and a follower of Saraha. Mantras and mandalas and all forms of mental visualizations have replaced much of the physical taboos of the old Mahasiddhas. Another strong aspect of Vajrayana is the reliance on lineage of the Guru tradition, a relationship between master and pupil. Tantra is viewed as esoteric and mystical by many, though some masters claim that it's not done purposely. It's just that, just like the Buddha telling one person there was a god and another there was no god, their teaching is tailored to the pupil as opposed to being tailored to all. So taken out of the context of the master-pupil dynamic, the words and meanings are all lost because they weren't meant for you, and you have very different needs, biases, and ignorance than the pupil the words were first said to. While Vajrayana Buddhism spread far and wide throughout all of Asia, including to the Mongolian Khanates, who made Vajrayana Buddhism their official court religion in China, and every Asian nation has a few schools in the tradition, it is mostly popular now in Tibet, Mongolia, Bhutan, and Nepal. In Nepal, monks do not practice celibacy, unlike the Tibetan version. However, as Tibet becomes more culturally and ethnically cleansed by the Chinese Communist Party, Vajrayana may end up considered a minor school even in once heavy Vajrayana Tibet, and perhaps shift its centers to Mongolia, Bhutan, northern India, or some of the Russian or former Soviet nations, as they all have areas with high populations of Tibetan traditions of Vajrayana Buddhism. So what is Tantric Buddhism? Tantric Buddhism is meant to be one of many methods to reach the middle way, by taking the extremes and tying them together and breaking down the taboo. Doing so with full awareness and control. To normalize the desire so the desire doesn't control you. To challenge and overcome the ick factor as a mental exercise, so that something that is gross to you and the desire for it to go away doesn't control you, and you can think about it without negative reactions getting in the way. It is one of many ways for a Buddhist to achieve the middle way and become whole. It is not just about sex, nor just about death, nor just about breaking down taboos. These are methods to the end goal of just being the middle way, whole. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this segment and think you would enjoy more of it, please consider buying a copy for yourself or a friend this holiday season. Link is listed below. If you have already purchased a copy, please consider leaving a review on Amazon, which will help the algorithm connect people who are looking for this type of information with my work. Thank you.